Hello everyone, and welcome back to my part 2 in my new Healing Qualia Treatment Protocol series. And in this particular video, I'm going to be speaking about what Healing Qualia is about, and I'm also going to be talking about the table of contents and letting people have a little bit of an idea about what Healing Qualia is. And I'm very excited to be talking about it because here I still have the manuscript. It's about to be published, so that's one book. It's just in 2 parts, but ease of use because it's over 1,000 pages. So I'm Dr. Alyse Price-Tobler, and I'm going to be talking you through this, and I really am very grateful that you've come to join me. I'm a mental health clinician who works with adult child survivors of parental alienation linked to child psychological abuse, familial abduction and estrangement, and also sometimes lethal family harm. So today I'm going to be taking you through and giving you a look inside the book before it's published. So I'm pretty excited about that. And on the front cover, as I explained in the last video, this is Dawn McCarty. On the left here is me in the middle when I was 15, and this is Andrew Faulkner, all adult child survivors of parental alienation. We are all very good friends and we support each other. There's a large adult survivor community. There's also a lot of us out there who are also clinicians and researchers, and we're very proud of our lived experience because it gives us a bit of an edge, and we're able to see through a different lens. The really important thing to say here at this point is you need to be doing work on yourself at the same time. It's not going to work if you don't do that. So we clinicians who sit in the lived experience space, where we come a long way, we do a lot of work, we have a different lens on things. So I'm a mental health practitioner on the front line in New South Wales, Australia, but I'm also an adult child, as I said, with lived experience of my parents' divorce, high conflict divorce, and I'm also a researcher. So I research this topic night and day pretty much when I'm not at work, and when I am at work, I'm working with frontline very complex NDIS clients, so National Disability Insurance Scheme clients, and I've worked in mental health and disabilities for 35 plus years. And I started out in disabilities when I was about 18, and mental health. So it's been my absolute passionate career. I still love it to bits and pieces, but I've opened up other areas, and now I'm also working in the child psychological abuse area, which is what Healing Qualia is. It's a treatment protocol for adult survivors of this particular abuse, and it's grounded in dual cohort doctoral research who I interviewed, mental health practitioners, the best in the world who work with this cohort, and also the adult child survivors of severe level parental alienation. So it's pretty exciting work, and out of that twin PhD came Healing Qualia, because I realised there was no treatment protocol for the adult child survivors that had been written. So that came from a PhD research topic and was specific to this particular topic. So hopefully releasing Healing Qualia will be very helpful out there in the community. I've written it from my heart. It's 10 years in the making, and well, we'll see where it goes. Anyway, let me have a little look here and I'll start reading to you. So the dedication in Healing Qualia is For those denied the right to love and be loved freely, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This is a quote from Mary Oliver, and I think it's very apt because a lot of adult child survivors have not been given the opportunity to even think about that, because a lot of the time they've been regulatory objects for their parents and parent. So for many children living through child psychological abuse in the context of parental alienation, familial abduction, estrangement, and lethal family system harm, this is not a question they are freely afforded. Before autonomy has had a chance to form, life may already be organised around coercion, fear, surveillance, retaliation, loyalty conflict, and the consequences of a loving parent, grandparent, cousin, sibling, companion animal, or other attachment figure whom the child has been pressured to reject. The freedom to discover yourself, to think freely, to love safely, and to live a life that belongs to one's own mind and heart is too often interrupted long before it has properly begun. The upcoming page that's in here is really, really important because it's called a page of remembrance. So part of this book is written for the children who are still trapped inside coercive family systems. It's for the targeted parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the cousins, the aunts and the uncles, family friends and beloved animals who were loved but could no longer be loved freely or safely. For the adult survivors still trying to reclaim their minds, voices, attachments, histories and lives while carrying grief that was hidden and never allowed to be spoken. For the families who waited, are still waiting, and may never stop wondering. For the relationships that were severed, hidden, distorted, or made to feel unsafe through fear, loyalty, pressure, and false narratives. This book is written for the nameless, for the silenced, for the survivors who lived, for the survivors who did not. This treatment protocol and this special ribbon are designed and written in your honour. And this is a ribbon that I want to talk about because it's the Thrivers Speak ribbon that Dawn McCarty, who's on the front cover, and I created for the first adult child conference in the world that we put together a couple of years ago. And this is the book from it. So it's called Warning Children Are Not Weapons. And basically it was a collection of all of these adult survivors from across the world who spoke up for the first time and all came together for the first conference on Child Psychological Awareness Day. And the Thrivers Speak ribbon that was created basically looks like this. So this is the Thrivers Speak ribbon, and it's purple and an off pink because we didn't want to be just for boys, just for girls. We want it to be for the LGBTQIA plus community. And we also want it to be for the children who we don't know where they are, and for the children who've been affected by familicide. That's what the wings are for. So this entire treatment protocol has them in mind. We think about them, we keep them in mind, we talk about them, because some children we can recover when they're adults, others we won't be able to recover. But the Warning Children Are Not Weapons book, we're very proud of this. So this is a collection by Dawn McCarty and contributing authors, and we got an international bestseller, and we also won the James Madison Award for authors and books. And James Madison Award is the American President's Award for books. And so this is a really, really interesting book, and it says in the back, in the world where the invisible wounds of child psychological abuse remain unspoken, this book dares to shed light on a reality many have struggled in the shadows to survive. Warning, Children Are Not Weapons is not only a testament to resilience, but a call for societal change. It brings forth stories of courage, healing, and the urgent need for systemic reform and treatment. Every chapter reverberates with the lived experiences of survivors who have navigated the profound depths of trauma, yet emerged stronger, refusing to let their voices be silenced. This is more than a book, it's a movement. A rallying cry for mental health professionals, family court systems, and advocates to wake up, listen, and take action. This is Chef Martin Mongello wrote this. He said, "I am proud to endorse this pioneering work and its mission to protect future generations from the tragic yet preventable consequences of alienation and abuse." For those of you who don't know who Master Chef Martin Mongello is, Marty Mongello, he spoke at our conference. He's the one right up the top here. So Marty Mongello has been the presidential chef to 5 presidents across who have been in the White House, and he's been across and cooking for them and looking after them and caring for them, and he was also in charge of Camp David, and he's an ex-veteran, and we love Marty. So that's this book, and the Thrivers Speak ribbon was created with that conference in mind. So I wanted to mention this because the adult survivor movement is actually very powerful and very strong, and this book honors all of the adult survivors. And then on the next page here, I've got pages of remembrance. So with regards to names of children, because I asked for names to be sent in to me so that we could write a dedication page to the children and dedicate Healing Qualia to it, especially the ones who are still in alienation. And some of them are also still adult survivors who are still in this coercive control relationship. So some names can be spoken publicly, some must be held privately for safety, dignity, legal protection, or the child's future autonomy. This page offers both. So we've got basically 3 pages of names here, and these were all sent in. Pages and pages and pages of names of children who are in active alienation, or we don't know where they are. So got a lot of names here. So we talk a lot about that in this book as well. But if I move forward into a different part of it, so basically how to use the protocol. It's the HQTP, which is my acronym for the Healing Qualia Treatment Protocol, is a modular phase-based clinical framework. Clinicians are not expected to read or implement every component at once. The protocol should be approached as a treatment map that helps practitioners locate where the survivor is clinically, what needs to be protected first, and which material is relevant to the current phase of work. So practitioners enter the protocol at the point that matches the survivor's present clinical presentation, not necessarily at the beginning of the book. Movement through phases is guided by safety, regulation, consent, epistemic stability, and developmental readiness rather than chapter order. This work is not technique-driven, it is posture-driven. The central clinical task is clinical restraint, sequencing, and protection of the survivor's nervous system and autonomy. The HQTP is a phase-based clinical map for assessment, foundation, pacing, and intervention with adult survivors of child psychological abuse in contexts of parental alienation, familial abduction, estrangement, and associated coercive control dynamics. It is designed to help clinicians recognize the population, protect survivors' safety, carefully sequence treatment, identify contraindications, and preserve survivors' autonomy. The HQTP is not a forensic instrument, a custody evaluation, a legal opinion, a diagnostic instrument, a disclosure tool, a crisis response tool, a reconciliation program, a self-help program, or a license to practice outside professional scope. It does not ask clinicians to prove historical events, determine legal truths, replace statutory or safeguarding obligations, or direct survivors toward contact, reconciliation, or non-contact outcomes. Its purpose is clinical, to support safe, ethical, phase-based treatment without coercion, premature interpretation, therapeutic overreach, or outcome-driven pressure. So if we go through and I just have a little look, I'm going to go and start some of the table of contents. I promised that I would talk about. We do start off talking about those who were denied the right to love and be loved freely, and pages of remembrance and the names of the children and adult children who were held with care. And I've made sure to start off Healing Qualia with that, because that's the basis for this entire book. Everything that I've written, thought about, is with them in mind, and the families who are also being affected by this. So basically, I go through the scale of the treatment gap and what I found in the doctoral research that I undertook. And I describe what Healing Qualia is. And I talk about suicide prevention being a shared responsibility, because that's extremely important. And go through, talk about the acronyms, and then I talk about the conceptual foundation of Healing Qualia, and then I go into the 6 core phases. So there's 6 core phases guiding treatment. And the first one is safety, orientation, and epistemic stabilization of a client. That is extremely important. We cannot get that down pat and the survivor in a space where they're feeling really safe. We do not proceed. We don't go any further. When we cover that area off and the person's ready, we can move into meaning reconstruction and identity repair. That's phase 2. Then phase 3 is where we cover mourning, loss integration, and developmental grief repair. So phase 4 is trauma integration readiness and architecture. Phase 5 is differentiation, boundary formation, and contact decisions. Phase 6 is integration, continuity, and long-term adaptation. So then we go through the HQTP phase architecture and intervention emphasis. I have a lot about what the clinician brings and what the HQTP teaches. And then I talk about the research foundation and the twin study that I performed at the University of Sunshine Coast. And then I address the gaps in the human rights and development for children exposed to coercive control, and talk about who's the target audience for Volume 3 with Healing Qualia. So I also go through the rights statements for children and adult survivors, because I've rewritten them. So, and then I lead into chapter 1 after that. So as you can see, it's very, very comprehensive. And chapter 1 goes into the foundational concept of child psychological abuse in context of parental alienation and attachment disruption, and go through what the background of parental alienation is in the literature, the clinical definitions, the impacts, the terminology. I describe all the severity limits, coercive punishment and survival alignment, child soldier dynamics, nervous system organization, psychological conditioning, and the IQ process. Basically, that is how to brainwash a child. So it's actually very easy to do. So here I explain it, because I find that this is extremely important to understand, especially if you're a child of this, and knowing what you went through and why when you're an adult really helps in recovery. So yeah, so I go through and talk about all of that, and then I talk about child psychological abuse in the context of parental estrangement, which is a new area that I've moved into, because I feel like there's a lot of children who don't come under the parental alienation banner. Because to be an alienated child, you need to have one of your parents basically saying terrible things about your other parent to you. But when you're estranged, that's a different kettle of fish. And sometimes with estrangement, the children can be relocated and also abducted. So I talk a lot about abduction in this research because it's a very worrying area in this field, how many child abductions are actually going on, and what I believe a classification of child abduction is when a parent removes a child without the other parent knowing about it, or against their will, or against the court's instructions as well. So I have a lot to say on that matter, but in the meantime, I'm just going to stop it here for the time being, and I just wanted to go over, this is my volume 1 from my PhD, and this is a guide for the mental health practitioners and adult child survivors, and what came out of the research that I did, and all of the different costs of therapy, the persecutory delusions after abduction. We've got addiction and correctional facilities in here. We've got all sorts of stuff. There's so much in here in this study 1, and then we went into study 2, which is the mental health practitioners and all of the data that I gathered from my second study in my PhD, and where I compared and contrasted both of the data sets and results, and realized that there was no treatment protocol that I could find, and that's why Healing Qualia was born. So 10 years in the making, 10 years of thinking about it, 10 years of sitting in my office, and yes, all those books are real. They're all mostly psychology books. So, and yes, I've pretty much read every single one, and I do quote out and reference a lot of them. So thank you very much for watching part 2 of my Healing Qualia introduction, and I look forward to speaking to you soon, and we'll discuss part 3. So thank you very much for watching right till the end. I really appreciate it. And just remember, every second counts when it comes to stopping suicide in this cohort. So we've got to move quickly, swiftly, and we've got to get the word out, and we've got to keep an eye on the children, stop the fighting amongst everybody. It is not a gender war, it's a child abuse problem. So we've got to get everybody on the same page. And from my heart and for the children, please stop fighting. Please try and find a way through and to be amicable, and just put the children first, because the children are the ones who Healing Qualia is for. And if you look at the size of Healing Qualia, this is a lot that we now have to work through and undo. And we don't necessarily need to be doing that to our children. And it's not a gender war. We just got to stop that. It's, as a child of this, we just have to focus on the children and what's going to be the best for the child. Think about that, because they will grow up and they will get treatment, and a lot of them will turn around and ask, why did this happen? What happened? What part did you play in this? So just remember, these little children, they grow up, they grow older, they will ask questions. And especially with Healing Qualia, the more practitioners that we get to train, the more the children sit in front of them, the more we can undo what's actually going on now. So please be kind, please be gentle with yourselves. A lot of this abuse we've been handed to on a plate from our forebears who did not do anything about it. And now we have an opportunity to look at what we've inherited, learn about it and change it, because I really believe the adult children are the ones who are going to change all of this. They're going to stop it. We can stop it in our lifetime. We just have to know what to do. We need to heal. We need to understand the trauma. We need to not pass it down to the children and the generations who are coming. And with Healing Qualia, that is my main aim, is to train and teach the practitioners, and then the adult child survivors will go out into the world, teach the others, their siblings, their children, and we can get a really big handle on this problem I actually call a silent epidemic going through the community, because it's amazing how many people I actually speak to who, once they realize that they're in alienation, particularly grandparents and targeted parents and cousins, once they realize, they are so surprised and so shocked that it's so prevalent in society. But a lot of people, unless you're experiencing it, don't want to hear about it, don't understand it. And we need to get a lot more psychoeducation out there. We need to be able to help the grandparents and all of the siblings and cousins and everybody out there get back the family members who aren't with them, have been moved or have been poisoned against them. This is not something that should still be going on, considering this was going on when I was a child going through family court. This is not something that still should be going on. So I'm firmly trying to teach the clinicians, teach the adult child survivors, and hopefully we're going to stop it here, because all the adult children that I work with, we stop it now. We do not pass it on to our children, and we learn how to cope with the alienating parent. So we'll see where it goes. But I've got a lot of lights around me, because this is a pretty dark topic that we're discussing, and I like to have all my lights on around to attract light into this space. So stay tuned, and I'll put up part 3 in a week or so. And thank you very, very much for watching until the end. And let's just keep learning, keep growing, keep being kind, and go gently, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Okay. Bye, everyone.